when they pulled him out of the groundhog cage. It was Groundhog Day yesterday. I didn't even notice it until the fucking thing died. And so there, I don't know if you know anything about the story, but Groundhog Day, obviously, groundhogs can't tell the weather. And I did some research yesterday. I don't know if you know this. 60% of Canadians truly believe the groundhogs can tell the weather. Like adults. Oh, yeah. They're like, no, for sure. They don't see it. And then I started asking questions when I was like 6. I'm like, what do you mean? Then he talks to the guy and he tells him, and then he's like 6 more weeks of winter. And like, how does he communicate that he has or hasn't seen his shadow? And all the answers I got when I was a kid was like, just shut up. It's just a nice day. Shut up. Like, and I'm like, no, I got to figure this out.
That's almost as alarming. Like, I remember hearing a statistic a while ago, like it's something like 60 to 70% of Americans believe in angels.
Is that a true stat?
That's a true stat, apparently. I wish it wasn't, but here we go.
I got to look that up. How many Americans believe in angels? What did you look up the percentage?
That percentage. It was this. It was. I heard it on. I can't remember exactly what the source was, but it was one of those ones where I like, okay, I believe you though, because you're always accurate. You 8 and 10. There you go. So at least Canadians are more skeptical about groundhogs than Americans are about angels. We've got that.
Oh my God. 8 and 10 Americans believe angels exist. 81% of U.S. adults believe in God. 81%. You know what that number is in Canada? I was shocked to find this out. You know what that number is in Canada? We're smarter. You know that.
I would go like, I would go in the 50s or 60s.
54%.
There we go. See safe.
Right? Down from like the 80s where it was like 68% or something like that. I only hope by the time I'm 70, it's like 3. That's my goal. Well, I hope to do enough damage to the religious landscape in this country and man-made religion over the next like 10 to 20 years that I bring that number down to single digits alone. You and I might be able to save the world if we do that.
They'll all be in Alberta.
Anyway, good to see you, dude. Nate, you're the host of The Breakdown. It's Alberta's best political podcast. You make sense out of things that nobody else can. And an enemy of the alt-right state. Do they still come after you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The Facebook page is always a fascinating read. The comments are. There's some folks that have some very strong opinions about the idea that somebody could not possibly be speaking on matters politically without being a paid operative by the Liberals or the NDP or the deep state, or like the number of people that I allegedly work for but get no money from is mind-boggling.
That's crazy, isn't it? How much money you make that you don't know about yet?
There's got to be a secret bank account somewhere.
I hope there is.
I would love.
I think about that all the time. The times that people have accused me of taking money from the government for just because I'm like, I wear a mask, or I got vaccinated. It's like, oh yeah, you fucking got vaccinated because you got paid. I'm like, no, I don't think that's how it works. And then the deep state money is funny too, but it never ends. Like I don't know about you. I thought not the disinformation, but the people who believed it, the dummies, the people, the lowest 20-30% of people on either end of the spectrum, left or right, don't care who you are. I would have thought they would have chilled out by now just by virtue of attrition, because it's like, how hard it is to stay fucking super angry for 3 years.
We've still got convoys in Alberta. We just had an anniversary convoy down in the Coots border because it's a social club more than it is a political movement at this point.
Yeah, it really is. But the social club comes with like this army of digital wieners, right? And it's never ending. And there are different levels to it. And you're here to talk about the premier level. And it's funny because I've seen these alt-right websites kind of pop up. We obviously know about the big blowhards, the Rebel Newses of the world. We're going to get to Canada Proud, what they're all about. But you really had a deep dive and took a deep dive into True North, which is a fascinating story, right? Like, and I saw you tweeting about it earlier this week. I'm like, who are you talking about? And you're like, True North. I'm like, fucking give me a piece of that. I want to know more. So that's why you're here today, because we want to unwrap how these things get started, where they work, what their intentions are, who they are intended to hurt, who they're intended to help, et cetera, et cetera. But what started you down this road? Was it all the people telling you to go kill yourself every 5 minutes on Facebook for telling the truth? What was it?
No, it's actually, it kind of goes almost back to the start of the breakdown, because one of the things that we believe is really, really important is that there is a distinction between punditry and commentary and actual journalism. There's a big difference between those things. And one of the things that we've always tried to be very, very clear on here at the Breakdown is that we aren't journalists. We do satire, we do commentary. We try to do well-researched satire and commentary, but we don't have an editorial board. God knows we don't have lawyers. And so we don't want the content that we produce to be misinterpreted by anyone as being journalism. It's well-researched commentary and satire, period, end of sentence. It's in all of our bios that we're not journalists. And the number of times that people try to say, oh, you guys are journalists, we go, nope. But the flip side of that is that there's a lot of people who have appropriated the trust that people have in the practice of journalism.
Had.
Yeah. To create their own little media empires of punditry and commentary that maybe isn't as well researched, and maybe is a lot more biased, and maybe does have specific motivations, and maybe does have specific affiliations to political parties. And one of the things that's sort of been on the list for the Breakdown for a very long time is this idea that, the people who are doing, in effect, what the Breakdown is doing, but they're calling themselves journalists. They shouldn't do that because it's dishonest, to us at least, and it's manipulative. If you want to write an opinion piece, fill your boots, man. I don't have a problem with anyone writing an opinion piece, but when you try to pass that opinion piece off as journalism and as an article that should be cited and trusted and used to define policy or used to define political movements, well, now we have a bit of a problem. And that's just sort of been there. We were working on a piece with a certain rebellious organization for a while, but then we had this UCP leadership race in Alberta, and one of the things that we noted with the UCP leadership race in Alberta is this one particular right wing, unabashedly so, news organization called True North had pretty much what appeared to be unlimited access to Danielle Smith, and this is at a time when Danielle Smith was being extremely picky and choosy about which legitimate journalists, if any, that she was talking to, but the True North could get access to her immediately. And one of the questions that raised was like, okay, then how come? Why is True North able to access Danielle Smith so consistently, so reliably, so easily, when the person who's doing this writing is a relatively newer, younger writer? I'm trying really hard not to call her a journalist because I don't believe what she practices is journalism from a personal standpoint.
She's a blogger. She's a blogger. That's what I call it. Like what you're doing is you're making a really succinct point, and it's going to lead into the rest of the conversation. I know it is. And the succinct point is this: is that every single time someone puts something out on behalf of a mainstream outlet, it's called journalism, right? That's and listen. There are a lot of people that do that are not journalists. Brian Lilly comes to mind. He's a radio guy with no journalism experience, and he's a fucking loser. And he lies, and he's literally living with Doug Ford's press secretary, which is where he gets all his information. So that's not a journalist, but he parades around as one, right? That's tier one. Tier two are the rebels and the True Norths and the this and the that are using the name of True North and parading around and masquerading around behind this pseudo news outlet, calling themselves journalists. Also not journalism. That's what you're saying. Correct. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Good.
100%.
Good. We also not journalists.
Oh God. Yeah.
At all. In fact, I'm embarrassed. Anytime someone's like, you think you're a journalist? I'm like, fuck, why don't you call me a traffic cop instead?
Usually I just send them like
a
screen cap of our bio and be like, just scroll up, man. Like it's right there.
All you got to do is read. Yeah. All you got to do is read, you douche. All you got to do is read. Anyway, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to make a point.
But so that starts the question of how come they're able to get access to Danielle Smith, who has a very deliberate approach to how she chooses to do her media, I'll say. What's going on there? And that started a 6-month fall down a series of rabbit holes. Like it was one of those things where we kind of started, we're like, hey, you know what? Let's figure out what the connection is and then we'll be done. And then you figure out what the connection is and there's this other piece And then you go, oh crap, what's this? And then there's another piece, and then there's another piece. Like, we were literally tweaking the final script of the piece that we're running tonight,
8 p.m.
Mountain Standard Time, 24 hours before the final filming of it.
Because you were still finding shit out about True North that was so
and we
fucking
could have
weird.
kept going, man. Like, it's such a bottomless pit. Like, there's a reason why the show, the True North episode, is just titled "Really," because the number of times that we would, and we do a whole field, I would call it a sketch, where the theme is just "really," because it's ongoing, where it's, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is past the point of, well, this could be a coincidence. This is like, there is fuckery afoot here.
Okay, so I don't want to release any of the fuckery here on the show, because you've got a show at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time at the BreakdownAB. I think you're going to probably stream it live, or it's a show that's done, but you're putting it out a lot correct
places. Yeah.
Okay, you're going to stream it all over the place. Where else can people get it? Let's get that out there first.
It'll be on YouTube. We have a Patreon page that we gave early access to. It didn't take very long for that to leak, which I think is fascinating, because that means that there's somebody who's following the breakdown who feels like we need to be like espionaged on, and it's like, wait 4 days, man. Whatever goes on Patreon,
dude, their money's green too. Just so you know, the asshole's money is the same.
Oh no, I'll take the $5 for sure.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely, anyway. Don't be short-sighted. Take that money, bud.
Yeah, it's on. It'll be on YouTube. It's going to be on the Twitter machines, the podcast, the audio version. Although I really have to say, like, we try to make the audio podcast super accessible. There are so many visuals. Like, all of our receipts are visual on this. There are so many visuals in this episode that it really is worth watching on the YouTube, because, I mean, the jokes are way funnier.
You sent me a 2-minute clip. We're having a video playback issues. You sent me a 2-minute clip, and we're going to try and fix it. And before we play it, and we're also going to put it out as micro after you go live, and make sure that people can see it. But you talk about, and I want to kind of suss this out verbally with you, because you're really good at this. You're great at explaining things, and you've done 6 months worth of research into True North News, which is not a news outlet. But when you open this thing up, and you started to do some research, and you've been doing, and it's been lasting 6 months, and you were adding things even as late as last night, and you put this piece out this evening. Where did you start, and what did you find? Like, tell me about a couple of the turns, without obviously telling me what's in the show tonight. Sure. About a couple of the turns that you thought, because you and I both know kind of how this space works. I've looked into it, obviously not as deeply as you. How the nonprofit space works, how charities work, loss leaders, data mining, all that stuff. For a lot of people out there, they'd look at True North, specifically the trailer people and the hillbillies, like it's just a website. No, it is not just a website, correct?
No. So, I mean, where we started looking at things was, okay, so what's the story with True North? And you immediately go to, okay, so True North is the product of somebody named Candace Malcolm. Candace Malcolm is somebody who's got a long history in Canadian politics and Alberta politics. She was a press secretary for Jason Kenney. There's a whole bit about that. But prior to that, she was actually working for the Wild Rose and Danielle Smith. So there's sort of the first point of like, oh, so they know each other. And it's interesting, because on Candace Malcolm's Lincoln, she actually talks about the fact that she spent the campaign, the 2012 election, on Danielle Smith's tour bus, with Danielle Smith doing all of the Danielle Smith things. So there's clearly a very established relationship going on there. But she then went to be a press secretary for Jason Kenney. There were some problems. We highlight those in the episode. And then she started this media career. And her first foray into media was with the Sun News Network, which was the far right, catastrophically failed TV network that started up and then failed, lost millions and millions of dollars. And then
it was in Toronto, and it's funny because it was in a building that I used to like go in and have meetings at. It was, and they had a TV show called The Grill Room. Have you heard of this thing? Have you heard of The Grill Room?
You know,
Ezra Levant, Faith Goldie, all the fucking favorites, all the cool people, right?
Yep.
And they fucking hated each other. And the story, and they all got paid like $500 a show or $200 a show or something like that. And they would all go out and get fucking hammered after, like just take the money and go and buy beer and stuff like that, and make the world a worse place and plot their revenge. Yeah, so it was not just failed. It was like it was one of the greatest jokes in Toronto media at the time. Still is. Just like, fuck, no one likes that shit here. It doesn't work, right?
What was particularly interesting is a lot of the criticism that Sun News Network, Sun News, Sun Media News, whatever the thing, got was that in multiple instances, including one that did involve peripherally, at the very least, Candace Malcolm, they were acting as, and were accused of acting as, the propaganda arm for the Conservative government at the time. So there's another interesting, okay, so somebody had figured out back then, if you have a media network that promotes the narrative that you want to have promoted, then you can get some things done.
Yeah.
So there's another little like, light bulb moment.
And here's the other thing, Nate. If you have one of those in your political party, if you've got a news proxy or media proxy, you can legitimize lies as real news.
Yes, you can. And they certainly tried to. We have a video clip of them trying to do exactly that on the Sun News Network that's included in the episode. Cool. But from there, Candace Malcolm went ahead and registered a bunch of stuff. And this is where it starts to get kind of like, oh, what's going on there? So the Twitter account that True North uses was registered in 2015. True North News didn't exist back then. The Facebook account that True North uses was registered in 2016. Didn't exist back then. So that forces the question, what did? Well, it was an organization that Candace Malcolm created in 2015 called the True Blue Initiative. But in 2017, it appears that her husband maybe bought her a charity for her anniversary. I don't know. But I mean, because in 2017, a charity that worked to help immigrants, new immigrants to Canada in Vancouver, was taken over by three people. One of them was Candace Malcolm's husband. The other one is a longtime political strategist and operative who also worked for Danielle Smith at the exact same time, named William McBeath. And then there was a lawyer out of Edmonton. He's since no longer involved with them. And they took over this charity, and they turned this charitable organization that helped new Canadians into True North. And then they rebranded their Twitter, and they rebranded their Facebook page, and they created all of these things claiming that they do research into immigration. That's what they do. But it gets even wild.
Not what they do. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
go
ahead.
It's not what they do. But it gets even wilder.
Yeah,
because there's been a couple of news organizations. Press Progress, I would say, is a legitimate. They have an editor. They do stories that actually have research. They do their own research. Sorry, I just saw the comment. I love it.
They do. Research.
But Press Progress has done a couple of stories them over the last couple of years, dating back to 2019. And one of the things is you can't do journalism as a charity. There are some journalistic outlets that also have significant charitable endeavors that they do. And because of that, they're able to issue tax receipts for donations. Because a charity, as I'm sure you know, can receive donations not only from people, but from corporations.
Yes. And that is the interesting part about almost all of these fake news outlets. True North, Canada Proud, Rebel News. I can't speak to their inception in terms of how they did it, but all of them have a nonprofit kind of trigger in their business model. All of them. And in True North's case, it is a nonprofit entity, is it not? Like it is
literally a registered charity. They're literally a registered charity with the government of Alberta. They are literally a registered charity. It's not even that they're a nonprofit. They literally took over the charitable status of this organization that was helping you Canadians get landed in Vancouver, and they turned it into a media empire, which you're not supposed to do. Journalism is not supposed to be a
I believe it's illegal. I believe it's not just unethical. I believe in terms of journalism in this country and the rules set forth by the government that True North and Canada Proud operate illegally, operate under the guise of a charitable organization, and they are not. And that is the truth. Like, you have the receipts that you're like, I've seen the video. I've seen the receipts. They're going to be in the video tonight, that these people not only operate like a charity, get write-offs like a charity, but then they take that charitable money. What happens to it next? What happens? And charities aren't allowed to advertise, by the way. So how does that work?
This was the wild thing for me, is that we got a hold of their financials for up until 2021, because they're all posted publicly on the government website. And they spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on advertising. Well, one of the things that we've learned over the years is when somebody says they're doing advertising, one of the quickest and easiest ways to figure out what they're doing, because most people advertise more on social media now than they do conventional media.
Yeah.
So the question was, well, what are they advertising on Facebook? And as you go through, they're signal boosting a lot of their own Facebook posts, which is what a lot of people do with Facebook posts. But it begs the question, like, okay, so you're advertising that the one that we use as an example as a show is there's the recent incident where the prime minister was mobbed by a group of people. They signal boosted, they paid to have that as an advertisement through the True North Facebook page to go out to a whole bunch of people on Facebook. But as we scrolled down, we started to notice that there was this other thing that was being advertised, and these were petitions. And you've probably, if you spend any time on social media, you've probably seen the defund the CBC, sign here, leave us your name, and we'll collect your IP address and all of that. An email too would be great. And you know, there's lots of organizations that do those. The primary reason, a petition, an online petition, has all of the force and effect in the legislature or in parliament as a paper airplane that has been soaked in water for the last 20 minutes. It accomplishes nothing. They're not taken seriously. So online petitions are one of the great lies, in that they're just data collection. So we're learning what people are angry about, what things, where they live, and we've got their contact information.
And not just contact. See, this is a lot of people understand the data mining perspective of this business. And when I got into it, I just assumed, you know, we're going to put out some stories. We're going to curate a podcast. Now we got like 100 of them and lots of stories at crier.co, which is now deanblundell.com, now crier.co. And when we made that flip, and we're very much for profit, by the way, because we're not dicks, and we didn't go out and skeeve a nonprofit name, business name, and then operate under that guise to present shitty information to shitty people to get a net result. But over the past, I would say 6 to 8 months since we've started to kind of move into crier.co, and after we launched it, you know, one of the taps that people, investors and people that we work with wanted to turn on was data mining. They want people's information. And and I've seen some of the clips that and unfortunately we can't play it today because our fucking video function isn't working. But long story short, I've seen the clips, and in the clips you lay out that data mining operation and how it works. And it's all there. Like, all the receipts are there. When you actually go to True North, and you're going to be able to find your way, because they will funnel you to a series of petitions that are not meant for a petition at all. They're meant to get your information, your email address, your home address. They're meant to get you fired up so that you partake in the great data collection thing that the Conservative Party of Canada is doing. And that's really the funny part. And not a lot of people know that in this space, is that, you know, all of these sites, yes, they're dangerous, super dangerous. As a matter of fact, I think if we're going to kind of turn the clock back, according to what we know now about how many people died needlessly, I think that number's around 3,000 because of disinformation, hundreds of thousands of hospital beds, hundreds of millions in lost wages, people that couldn't go to work because of COVID, because of disinformation. So it's really like a multi-edged sword, right? If you can present yourself as a legitimate news outlet, you can then take those people, once you get them in your ecosystem, and you can funnel them anywhere. And when they get there, they're going to give you what you ask them for, which is the ability to change the world for you. And that's not the case at all. They don't care about those people. They don't care about the petition or the reason behind the petition. What they really care about is jacking you up to the point where you're going to click all the way through to give them into your information. That is it. That is the goal, is it not?
Yeah. I mean, this website, it's trueblueinitiative.ca for anyone who wants to go take a look and see just how loose they are with non-existent privacy stuffs. This is a website that belongs to the organization that Candace Malcolm first generated in 2015. She's flipped it into something called the True Blue Initiative. It is a website that has only petitions. There's no menu. There's no about. There's certainly no privacy policy. And it is literally just a collection of petitions that you can click on. Some of them are signal boosting True North stuff. There's one about how Indigo should be forced to stock. There we go. Indigo should be forced to stock Andrew Lawton's book for reasons, I guess. But a lot of them are like defund the CBC, and they're all social issues that people get super fired up about. Yeah. But the wild thing about this is there's no privacy policy whatsoever. So what this means is if you go to this website and you enter your information, whether it's your email address, your name, whatever, that information gets collected and you have zero say over what happens with it next. But what you've done is you've told the people who are running this in the background that you care about defunding the CBC. So let's hypothetically, not saying this is what's happening, just as a hypothetical, because I got enough legal problems as it is, but let's hypothetically say that the Conservative Party of Canada reaches out to, I don't know, a data broker of some kind and says, hey, we want a list of people who care deeply about defunding the CBC, and we want their contact information. Can you make that happen? That data broker could then use a website exactly like what this True Blue Initiative thing is and say, yeah, we've got a list of 4,000 people who are super pissed off about the CBC, and there's no privacy policy that says that we can't sell you their information that we got for free. And then you can send them emails and say, we want to defund the CBC too. But the wild thing, excuse me, the really wild thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the whole thing is, like I said, we called it really for a reason. But the really wild thing is walk it backwards. So we have data collection going on. What's happening with that data? We don't know. So whether or not somebody's collecting and selling it, whether or not the True Blue Initiative is turning that data into a profit, we don't know. What we do know is True North is boosting these petitions that are collecting this data. We do know that True North is paying for the advertising for this separate company to collect that data that they could be making a profit of. And we do know that True North is a charity that is funded by donations, that is signal boosting these charities that are data collecting for another company owned by the same person who's the editor-in-chief and founder of True North, who could conceivably be selling that data off.
Yeah.
And that's just one small piece of this incredibly complex, like the field piece is just, if you watch the field piece is all I'm going to say, because if you have any doubts as to just how incestuous this whole thing is, I challenge anybody to watch what we do in the field piece where we go into downtown Calgary and visit the headquarters of True North, to watch that and be like, oh yeah, this is all super legit.
What'd you find at the office?
Well, okay, I'll give you a little free
spoiler.
You a clue.
Yeah, tell me.
There's no office.
No shit.
It's a UPS store that rents mailboxes.
It's a PO box.
It's a PO box. On their website, it's described as suite 485. You can go to their website right now. It's listed as Suite 485. So we went to try to visit Suite 485, and we couldn't because it's a PO box at a UPS store in downtown Calgary.
Yeah.
But we also went and visited, I think, at least 8 other conservative PACs, organizations, and it's crazy how many operate out of a UPS store in downtown Calgary. It's really fascinating how many of them have the exact same mailbox. Like, I don't know how they fit all of those people into that tiny little mailbox who are working on all of these organizations, but they
flex from home, dude. Everybody's doing it now post-COVID. You can flex from home. Maybe the offices are behind the mailbox. You don't know that.
No, I asked. I even asked if they had an
so you do know that. Okay.
That's where the bit in the trailer that we put up last night comes from, where you can hear my voice saying, "Okay, but where's your elevator?" Because it's a single story UPS store, so it's a very clever joke.
Is it in a strip mall? Please tell me it's in a strip
No,
mall.
it's a standalone, which is wild.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like it made for great footage. But
oh my God. So these guys, True North, in this one example, True North, and listen, you've laid out Candace Malcolm, who I want to get into, like, because we're not done yet with this conversation in terms of the players. Like, you've laid out individuals, you've laid out Miss Malcolm and her husband, you've laid out a lawyer from Calgary who decided to take a walk. But Andrew Lawton is involved in this, and he might be one of the worst human beings in the world. He's emotionally, like, depraved. He's just one of the biggest pieces of shit you've ever met in your life. He's a failed broadcaster. He was terrible on the radio. But they heard something in him, right? How do they staff this thing? Like, how do they keep this thing moving? Because they've got some people like Rupa, who is one of the worst liars in news history, and all she does is fucking lie for a fucking paycheck. And by the way, Rupa, you can sue me. I know you said you wanted to sue me a while ago for outing you as one of the worst displayers of Russian disinformation, which is a fucking fact that the University of Calgary put together a study around. You, Ezra, Andy, all of you. So listen, none of those people are legitimate publishers. How do they make it work? Is it all Candace Malcolm? Like, is she I mean, she's got a couple of masters. She's a smart lady. She knows what she's doing, right?
There's a chief operating officer involved too.
And who's that?
That's a gentleman named William McBeath. It's cool. It's interesting because William McBeath is not only the chief operating officer of True North, which he presumably pulls a salary for. He also sits on the board of True North. He's one of the 3 board members of the registered charity that is True North. So I'm sure that that doesn't seem like a conflict at all.
What a fucking guy. Proud Albertan.
And he goes way back in Alberta politics too. So he's been involved in a couple of PACs that have tried to influence the outcomes of municipal elections. He was part of the Wild Rose, not only the political apparatchik, but he was a legislative employee with the Wild Rose. So there's a lot, like, it's fascinating to see how many lines you can draw back to Danielle Smith and how many people started their careers in politics with Danielle Smith and the Wild Rose. And all of a sudden the Wild Rose is getting all of this. Like, we took a look at one of the articles that they did just recently where they talked about the scandal that's currently going on with the interference with Crown prosecutors. The short version is there are allegations that Danielle Smith and her office may have allegedly attempted to influence Crown prosecutor decisions that were being made surrounding the Coutts blockade, as well as a bunch of other things.
Yeah, based on her own words too, right? Like, prior to
actually she said it 3 times on video.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's just pulling it out of the ether.
It's not like people are going, "Oh fuck, let's just accuse her of something there's no good reason to accuse her for, and let's just go back and get the 3 times she said it publicly that she wanted to pardon every asshole that decided to be a dick during the pandemic and got a charge for it," right?
Yeah. So CBC ran a story where they said, hey, we've actually got some receipts here, and we've got some people from inside the room who are saying this is specifically what happened. And Danielle Smith responded by saying, we're going to do a 2-day internet search or an email search of the entire Crown prosecutor's office and everybody who's involved with her office, and that'll definitively prove it, except it won't, because It didn't include personal emails. So if anybody sent any personal emails, like let's say I'm a staffer in Danielle Smith's office, if I email a Crown prosecutor to their personal email, that doesn't show up on the search. They never publicly released what the search terms were. So whether or not they, our search word is influence. Okay, they didn't find anything. There were a huge number, long story short, huge number of flaws with the search. There has been nobody who knows anything about internet searching who said, yes, that's good. That resolves it. Thank you. Nobody said that. Everybody has been like, this is a dumpster fire and it doesn't prove anything. But True North ran the story saying, they did this search and Danielle Smith's been vindicated. And did we mention we should defund the CBC? I'm just shocked that they didn't include in their story. By the way, we've got a petition for that. So they have this incredible bias when they're reporting on Danielle Smith stories. They don't include any of the flaws, and they have a tendency of attacking the people who are saying bad things about Danielle Smith. So it's fascinating the interplay that exists between True North as a media organization, the people who work and run for True North or run True North, and all of their careers with Danielle Smith.
Well, it's not just True North, right? Like, I mean, Brian Lilly was a longtime conservative operative, conservative lobbyist, conservative commentator. He now writes for the Toronto Sun, and the Toronto Sun is basically owned by the Conservative Party of Ontario. They just are. Everybody knows it. It's fucking a joke. It's misinformation and disinformation, but they do the same things that True North does, where they'll take a kernel of truth and then they'll offer this fucking weird narrative about what it really means in an affirming piece for their base, right? And if you know anything about this space, you are generally not going to be successful if you're delivering news of any variety, if you're not delivering it on behalf of a culture, right? It's just kind of the bottom line. It's the way that news is now. And we really try to stay away from it. Our biases will creep in, but those biases are about character generally. They're not about lies and about hypocrisy. They're not about political color, stripes, or people that you may know or like, but it does exist. People have offered to purchase us several times over the past 3-4 years. All of them came from the political left or right. Like, they don't care what we do. They care that we have lots of people looking and reading our stuff, and they care about what they can do with it after the fact, right? We've been offered money from foreign governments to run pieces. Legitimately. I'm not even kidding you. Nobody like, a guy will call you and he'd be like, hey, I'm Gary. I represent this group and we want to advertise this piece that we wrote. We'll give you 10 grand to run it. And I'm like, who? What is this? Who is this? What is it? Oh, don't worry about it. And I'm like, no, I have to worry about it, because if I give that away, I'll never get it back, dummy. So fuck, tell me what you would like to do here. And invariably, it came from the Chinese Communist Party, and they wanted to run a piece on how maybe the Americans started COVID. Like, seriously, that's how this whole space works. But in Canada, and I'm not kidding you, it's
I know, for real. I know. It just.
And a CSIS guy told someone I know, he's like, well, then Dean's the most honest person in Canada, because like 70 to 80% of news outlets in this country take dirty money for dirty narratives. However, True North is dedicated to it. Rebel is dedicated to it. Canada Proud is dedicated to it, to that point where, I don't know if you mentioned the Justin Trudeau mobbing down in Hamilton last week. Canada Proud helped facilitate that. And they sent their cameras down there so they could get some fucking sweet pictures before everybody else, and they could put that around the world and tell everybody the entire country hates this guy. He can't even go to a hotel without being power bombed with flares and people telling him he's a fucking tyrant. And that's the goal, right? Each individual outlet has a different goal and way of doing things, but none of them are authentic. Like, absolutely none of them. From inception to intention, none of them are authentic.
Well, that's how we bookended the episode, actually, because one of the writer that covered Danielle Smith's campaign, she's an interesting. Let's go with, I find her principles to be very erratic, is how Nate would position it, as an opinion and not a statement of fact.
Would I say she's valueless? She's a valueless human. Would I say that? I probably would.
I don't know.
Well, let's find out.
She left an organization called iPolitics, and she left that organization and she went to another far right outlet that, boy, is a whole other thing, called the Western Standard. And one of the things that she bragged about when she joined the Western Standard, which she doesn't appear to be writing for anymore, she seems to be dedicating herself to True North and the Epoch Times, because of course. And
it's can I just say this too before you finish your story? There's like a Ferris wheel of fucking idiots, and they all write, right? And they're all looking for paychecks. And so, and I can tell you this because I do this for a living. They go door to door, and they'll sell their services to anybody for $500 a month to write 4 stories. They will. It's just fucking amazing to watch. And so when that's who you're talking about, continue. I don't mean to interrupt.
No, that's cool.
Human,
that's
go
cool.
ahead.
So she wrote a piece when she joined the Western Standard where she talked about one of the reasons why she was joining the Western Standard is they wouldn't exercise any sort of editorial influence on her stories, which, as I started the whole thing off with, is kind of one of the defining features of journalism. If you think as a journalist that you don't need another second set of eyes on what you've produced, that's scary, period. But she talks about how, there's not going to be any sort of editorial influence. And also the Western Standard doesn't take any federal money because they're above that sort of thing. They're not going to be influenced by the liberals and their media bailouts. The Western Standard refused the bailout. I don't think they refused it. I think they applied and didn't get it, but that's neither here nor there.
That's a true story. They did apply and didn't get jack shit because they're like, you're not fucking real. Yeah. Go ahead. I know all about Mr. Fildenbrand. I know about how he rented out his fucking his government paid condo for as an Airbnb so he could make a little extra cash. He's the editor at
owner and editor.
Owner and editor, and I know how he sat in his underwear on his back porch and shot a deer, out of deer season with his gitch on. Might have been hammered. I don't know. He's just a terrible fucking idiot. He's just an agent. That's all he is an agent to the conservatives. But anyway, go ahead.
Fled the scene of an accident, I think, was in there too. I could be wrong.
Oh, yeah. He's a real good guy. Quality character.
Yeah. So she wrote this piece extolling the virtues of the Western Standard and their refusal to take federal money. And then she went to True North, who took the federal emergency wage subsidy funding during COVID, despite the fact that they have consistently made money as a charity year over year since 2019.
Yeah.
So, as I end the episode, principles, right?
You know what, though? Media has never, I was thinking about this because it's easy to shit on mainstream media. I can't remember what the trust score is. It's like 22% or something like that. 22% of Canadians trust mainstream media, and with reason, right? You can't take government money and be considered an unbiased source. You just can't. They've been taking it for a long fucking time. Number one. Number two, they serve their executive relationships. We all know that. Yep. Now, that is the problem we're talking about here with all these alt-right outlets that all seem to kind of end in Calgary and have P.O. boxes in Calgary and don't operate like real fucking businesses. But when it comes to mainstream media, this is their own fault, right? Like, I mean, the disinformation that we see and we eat on a daily basis, it's different in every province. And I've watched a news television station in Calgary deliver the news in one night, and I've watched a news station in Toronto deliver the news in another night. Very different stories, very different tone. The things you would expect to see, you don't see. The things you read about and we talk about the most on social media never see the light of day. And so they appear on these outlets outside of mainstream, right? But mainstream was never a valued industry to begin with. Like, they took money from marine land. They treated people like shit. They took free labor for years and years and years. And I know that because I was in it for a long fucking time. They are a valueless industry, so they're suffering the sins of their past. And that's why these independent brands seem to succeed, because they've created an opportunity for it to happen.
I think that there's an important distinction to be made, though, in between journalists and, I don't know, corporate overlords. because there are, and I got to say, especially given the political climate in Alberta right now, I am so grateful for the mainstream media employed journalists,
real journalists,
journalists who,
and there are lots. Yeah,
there are, and they're doing it for the right reasons, I think, and they're doing it because they recognize and they fundamentally believe that the cornerstone of any democracy is a well-informed electorate. And what we have happening is the electorate is getting not only less and less informed, but misinformed and disinformed. And there is a huge conversation that's happening in journalism right now. There's a journalistic outlet just a couple of days ago that let go of a couple of editors and some reporters because they're wanting to do the making of the money. And this is where that conflict exists, because you have journalists who want to tell stories honestly, authentically, without influence. And there are some outlets that will allow for that. I mean, I take a look at the migration of people like Charles Russell to the Tyee. And a lot of people view the Tyee as a left-leaning thing, sure. But Charles Russell's reporting has always been really good. And
he's
really
awesome.
Thorough.
He is so detail oriented. He researches better than anybody. The Tyee is a wonderful outlet. They do a great job. Yeah.
So there are outlets that are not, well, how can we make the most money the quickest? But they're few and far between. And when we're talking about major media organizations, Hoffbell, that the primary motivating factor is not, we should keep our electorate informed with actual information so that our democracy doesn't fucking crumble. When that's not the primary motivating factor, and it is money, then yeah, you get the dumb stories and you get the biased stories and you get the stories that are for sale. And I will say, as much as, you know, the journalist side, the stories that came out over the last couple of weeks in regards to Daniel Smith and the influencing the prosecutors, those came out of the CBC. Those came out by journalists whose integrity and quality of work is second to none. They are able to do that because of the funding that they get from the CBC and the jobs that they have with the CBC. So I'm very grateful that there is a space for journalists to go to, I don't know, practice actual journalism. Without having to worry about the corporate overload so much. But at the same time, the fact that CBC is now selling their podcast time for a revenue stream, it's just
like, you got to make money, man. You got to keep the lights on. But hey, listen, they get a few billion from the government to do that job.
But tell the truth about it. Like, that's the thing to me. If you're going to do editorial, if you're going to do advertising, I don't have a problem with that, because Bill's got to get paid. I totally get that. I mean, you and I were having a conversation about advertising before we went live. That is a function. But I think that it is critically important that people recognize that. I was having this conversation with someone last night, and, you know, a while ago, the Breakdown made a joke about somebody who may or may not have had a public dating profile on a site who also has a history of, I don't know, corroding democracy. And a lot of people got really upset with that.
Candace Bergen?
No.
She was on Cougar Life for a while.
Oh, there you go. A lot of people got really upset with that. My theory is a lot of people got really upset with that because there's a lot of people who are on dating sites and they don't want to publicly be known that they're on a public dating site, which creates dissonance for me. But there were a lot of people who were upset with it. And I and the team had a conversation about it. Like, okay, so the joke's pissed a bunch of people off. There's a bunch of people lighting their hair on fire and saying the Breakdown should be canceled. So that's the second time this week. But do we leave it up or do we take it down? And we agreed we leave it up.
Yeah, you do.
Because not only was it a valuable joke, and it was a funny joke, I think, and the rest of the team thought, but I can't think of something worse that you can do than deliberately subverting democracy.
Exactly.
Like,
dude,
that's a societal level thing. If you run over someone's dog, or if you knock over a liquor store or whatever, those are very bad. Please don't do those things. But when we talk about deliberately and willfully subverting the things that keep our society going and keep us away from, you know, states like Russia, you're hurting everybody.
Yeah.
And you don't get to just walk away from that free of consequence.
Do you notice the fucking great point? Do you notice the free speech pioneers? You know, the people, the freedom people. It's like free speech. I took a strip off Jordan Peterson this week. Felt great. Free speech, free speech, free speech. And you're like, okay, free speech. Let's do that today. Let's try free speech. And they say something, you correct them, and along comes 400 bots telling you to shut the fuck up. I'm going to find you. Shut the fuck up. Those are not from liberal accounts.
Nope.
Those are not people that believe in free speech.
Nope.
The people who go, fuck you, I can say what I want. You go, okay, well, here's the problem with that, and here's a correction for what you just said. Then they come after you to tell you to shut the fuck up or try to scare you into not saying anything. We literally live in that world. We live in that world where all the receipts of the people who are asking for free speech are in the opposite of the free speech direction. Completely in the opposite.
Demetrius Nicolaides, the Minister for Advanced Education here in Alberta, he came out today because we had this little dust up because there's this like residential school genocide denier who wanted to do a speech at the University of Lethbridge. And the students said, nuh-uh, not on our watch. And they said, no, you don't get to come here and you don't get to lie to people. And it's really important there's a distinction between an opinion and something that's demonstrably factually wrong. If you have an opinion if you want to argue about whether or not lemon meringue pie is the best pie, I'll have that argument. And if you're saying that it's not, you'll still be wrong at the end of the argument because lemon meringue pie is the best pie.
It's close. No, it's a close second to apple crumble, but go ahead.
So you're still wrong there, but that's okay because that's an opinion and we can have those opinions. But if we want to talk about whether or not the fucking earth is flat,
yeah,
that's a fact. It is round. It is proven. Give your head a shake, and you shouldn't be allowed to do. Now we're having a debate in the comments about the best pie. I love your comment section, by the way.
It's wacky in there, isn't it?
It is. But you know, when we're talking about things that are demonstrable facts, period. There is no reason for some kid to pay an exorbitant amount of tuition, by the way, to attend a school that is going to have somebody on and say, so the world's flat and I'd like to do a PowerPoint present. I bought a model to do that sort of thing when they're supposed to be at
educating people about the truth, right? Like facts. That's what universities are for. And that's what kills me about these guys. They all put themselves in those spaces, though. They all try to do these things where they're like, hey, listen, that's why Andrew Tate exists and why his bail got denied for the third time and why he's sleeping with cockroaches, by the way, is that he tried to present sex trafficking and being a misogynist prick who hurts women as a business opportunity and freedom to move, freedom to do what you want. This is not right. You can't. And there's a point where you have to establish some kind of baseline of fact. And whether or not it's in the news, right? Whether or not it's in the news, we all used to be able to agree on when someone got caught, right? We always used to be able to say, he got caught. And now when someone gets caught, take Andrew Tate for an example, not only did he tell everybody what he did, not only did he leak through videos and all for the last 10 years, it is like, here's how I commit wire fraud and how I traffic humans. Like, I mean, he's laid it out for us. And not only is that a real thing, but that in a post-world society, which is what we live in, post-truth world society, is we live in this time where they'll go, you know what? I'm going to change the rules right now because you're getting really close to the truth.
Yep.
And that's all we do. We chase that thing around. And there's a certain segment of society and a certain person, as a certain news outlet that's valueless that you can't pin down on the truth. And so it's making people fucking crazy, Nathan. Crazy.
Well, that's the wild thing is that this same minister here in Alberta just orchestrated allegedly the firing of the president of another university. He did fire a controlling number of the board because that university wanted to, it's an open access university. So if you didn't finish high school, you can still go there and you can get a general studies piece because, you know, life happens in high school. And if you want to at some point get a degree, you should be able to access that. So it's also Alberta's only dedicated distance learning university. And when COVID happened, they went entirely online and they were like, hey, this is really working because we're a distance university. And there are some folks in the town that this university operates in who are like, hey, we don't necessarily like that because we're a small town and we're in rural Alberta and we're dying, because that's what small towns in rural Alberta do. And
Athabasca, right?
Yep. They petitioned the minister to say, you know what, you have to make them stay. You have to make them stay and they have to work here. And the board said, you know what, that seems like it's a terrible idea. So
seems tyrannical, really. It seems like tyranny is what it sounds like.
Fired the board. They put in people who would do what they wanted to. The UCP did, because it was a ministerial order. And they just recently, and this is where it just gets gross, the president of the university, given that this board now has a controlling interest, and there's a lot of real questions that are being asked about how the vote was even conducted, just fired the president who lost his wife to cancer a couple of weeks ago. So now that they can put in the people that they want to do. So not only are they just being like Machiavellian about it, but they're also just being dicks. But the question that I had for Mr. Nicolaides earlier today was, okay, so you think free speech needs to be presented no matter what? I look forward to your support for parents who want to take their kids to the drag story time things, because they're making parental choice decisions, which we know this government believes in parental choice. And we have people expressing their freedom of expression here in Canada. So you're going to tell all of those nutters who keep showing up saying hateful things that they shouldn't be there, right? Oddly, I haven't seen him issue a statement on that yet.
No, crazy that he hasn't, dude. Crazy that he hasn't, when hypocrisy sits so thick in the air. But when someone says, hey, dude, what do you think? They're like, fuck, I can't. I mean, and it traverses provinces. Even Scott Moe, I loved him last week. He's like, we need to stop the catch and release program. Too many criminals on the street. The hypocrisy there was thick in the air as well. And people started going, aren't you the guy that murdered a chick in a hit and run in 1997? Aren't you the guy with a couple of DUIs? Aren't you that guy? Aren't you that guy? Didn't your son just get popped for DUI and nobody spent any time in jail? Didn't you like let your brother out of jail a couple of years ago? Like, didn't you and it's amazing because it's rules for thee and not for me, right? Yep. That is fascism. And in your case, and I don't know how it happens, all the PO boxes for those fascist organizations are in Alberta. Why? What is it with Alberta? What is it? Is it the cage that the UCP and the conservative religious faction like to put over top of the province where you can operate freely like a huge religious asshole? What is it?
You know, it's fascinating because, and I'll tip one of the ones that I was just like, I saw the address and I saw the organization, and this was another one of those really moments, because one of the organizations that operates out of that UPS store is an organization called the Free Alberta Strategy. And the Free Alberta Strategy is the group that wrote the Sovereignty Act that caused so much trouble and was watered down and is now just dumb. But the players behind the Free Alberta Strategy are equally exhausting, because one of the main guys is a dude named Rob Anderson. And Rob Anderson is famous in Alberta because he was elected as a PC MLA, but then he crossed the floor to the Wild Rose. And then Danielle Smith was like, hey, I'd like to cross the floor to the PCs. And he was like, I'll go with you. So he crossed the floor twice in one period. And he's a lawyer, and he's the author and architect of the Alberta Sovereignty Act. He is also the director of the Premier's office now. And out of the same UPS store that what some people call the positive propaganda arm of the Smith government in regards to True North is operating, you have the Free Alberta Strategy also operating as well. It's absolutely surreal. And you can go through the list of the organizations, and in the field piece we do, where it's just like, this can't be real because this is so ridiculous.
It's like totally real. And you know what's funny is that, like, when you try to explain it to somebody, they're like, dude, take a Valium, get a hot tub, relax.
I wish you could, but that's what they count on.
There's no way the political machine operates these news outlets like lobby propaganda arms. That's all they do, dude.
Yeah,
that's all They do. It is so much more prevalent on the right. Happens on the left a lot, and I've got lots of examples of that too. But I don't know how it, and I'm kind of jealous in a monetary way, because these guys have been able to fucking not just make it work, but make all kinds of money while they're literally brainwashing people and grinding them into their ideology, right? That's literally what they're doing in certain provinces, and that's what the conservative machine is all about right now. It's about literally hiding behind religion, hiding behind these ideologies, and touching people in the same fields that they want to get action in, right? And it's for their friends. It's not for you. None of these guys do it for you. You think Danielle Smith is in it for Albertans? Fuck that. Dude, you think Justin Trudeau is in it for Canadians? No, he's in it for the Liberal Party. Do you think any of these guys are in it for you? No, none of them are. And we say that all the time. But the manipulation machine on the right is so much more effective than the one on the left.
Oh, there's no question.
Unbelievable.
There's no question. I've had this conversation with a bunch of people in regards to the left, progressives, whatever you want to call it, are so far behind conservatives in regards to the media machine and the manipulation and the information control. Like it is fighter aircraft versus people on the ground with rocks throwing them up, and a lot of them are landing on their own heads most of the time. The difference is absolutely night and day. But the thing to me, and this is where, when people are like, Nate, you're drawing you get the GIF with the guy who's like doing that thing and he's pointing at the wall with the string and everything.
Yeah.
This isn't interpretation or misinterpretation of scientific fact. This isn't COVID conspiracy theory. I'm not a geneticist. I'm not a virologist. If somebody hands me a paper that is like thick and deep of deep science in regards to protein spikes or fucking whatever, I'm going to hand that to someone smarter than me and say, please tell me what this means, because this is so far out of my depth. This isn't that. This is, look where they're asking you to send the money to. Gosh, a lot of these places are the same thing. There's no interpretation that's required. It's literally, hey, that's the same address. Hey, that's the same post office box for some. Hey, that's the same post office box for these ones. Why are there 2 post office boxes feeding like 12 organizations? Why is that happening? I have questions. That's it.
Yeah.
You
ask the questions. No, but you ask, you're doing your due diligence. You're asking these questions. And why I wanted to have you on the show today was to talk about the fact that you're looking into this when we just accept these people as bad, right? And we don't live in that world anymore. That post-truth world requires effort for a lot of people. You and I are a different vintage, right? We are from a time when you had 4 TV channels. At least I did, maybe 6 if you were really lucky, depending on. You had one channel?
CBC in northern Alberta with an antenna on the roof of the house.
And it was fuzzy, and you'd have to hammer the side of the TV just to get it.
Star Trek on Saturdays, man.
It was super exciting. And like 2 hours of cartoons on Saturday morning. Remember that?
Exactly.
You'd run downstairs to get the cartoons. Hercules was always number 1 in my books. I love
Switchback.
Switchback was cool too. I think Howard Glassman was the star of Switchback for a little while, if I'm not mistaken. I think he might have been. Old radio guy. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But it requires work. Like we live in this time, again, post-truth world. You have to do work. Back then, you turn on the TV, you get the news for an hour. I'm good. That's the truth right there, because Walter Cronkite said it or Lloyd Robertson said it, whatever the situation was, right? Now we have hundreds of those on your phone, easily accessed from anywhere, that are doing the same thing, and we're still hardwired to believe that the things that people present us are true, right? And I cannot tell people this enough. Media literacy starts with you. Like it starts with you, and you're not going to like the answer as to how to fucking figure out what's true and what isn't. You got to go to a few other sources. I know it's a couple other clicks, but you got to figure out the truth. You got to dig a little deeper. You got to do a little more work, because it's not just for a guy like Nate to come up with that information. That wasn't just, putting on the hockey game, click a few things, cut and paste, and go, hey, I guess these guys are a bunch of fucking liars. How long did that take you? But tonight, 8 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, really a special on True North. How long did that take for you to put together, and on top of it, cut off because you couldn't go anymore? You had a deadline to meet. You could still be researching, right?
I literally started it 6 or 7 months ago. I don't want to think about how many hours went into it because I'll cry. It's here's the to add to your point that you were just making there. Here's one of the other things that I think in regards to media literacy that people need to be asking. If you read a story and your immediate reaction is, "Ha, I knew it. I was right." That's when you need to stop. That's when you need to stop and go, "Okay, wait a second. This feels really good."
Let me confirm.
Let's it's that trust and verify thing. And the flip side of it is if you read a story, particularly from an organization that has a clear bias, cough, True North cough, and you're like, "Oh, I'm very angry now. This story has made me angry." That's when you need to stop. If you're reading anything and you're having a significant emotional reaction to it, that's usually a big indicator that you need to say, "Oh, what's going on here?" Because if somebody's presenting you, what's that?
Maybe I should get a coffee and then go visit another source. So I'm not so angry.
If somebody's presenting you content and you're having a visceral emotional reaction to it, that's by design. Period.
Great fucking point. And probably a good place to jump off. Like, it really is. And I say this to people from time to time, that anytime you make a decision with your emotions, probably not a great decision. I don't care what emotion you're employing to be able to make that decision. Joy, extreme happiness, elation, anger, right? Those algorithms are meant to do one thing. And I'll tell you something. Again, I hate every single one of these cucks, but they're good at it. They know how to fucking piss you off. Ezra Levant can piss you off and make you click things. Same with Jeff Ballingall from Canada Proud. Is he the biggest piece of shit on the planet? Sure, but he knows exactly what buttons to touch, how to do it algorithmically. So does True North, and so does Candace Malcolm. And when they make you angry, they are doing it on purpose to get a reaction from you so you will fall in line and click all the way through to the things that they want you to, so you can send them money and they can fund disinformation in this country.
Yep.
Right.
It is. And the fact that True North operates it as a charity, like that alone, like, fuck off. Don't tell me it's not about the money. You're operating as a charity. The whole reason is for the financial benefit. Otherwise, you wouldn't have taken over a charity to help new immigrants and flipped it into your media empire because you clearly didn't believe in the work.
Yeah, I'm sure, not many people buy a charity to welcome new immigrants to the country and then don't do any of that without probably some nefarious intentions. I'm just saying
there's questions.
Yeah, there's lots of questions. Nate Pike. The BreakdownAB is the name of the podcast. Highly recommend you watch it tonight, 8 p.m. If you go to the BreakdownAB on Twitter, you'll be able to access it. He's got a great trailer. We just put it out as well. It's also in the description of this podcast, so you can check it out. And again, just quickly remind us where and when so people can watch this special on Unmasking True North. In really, where else can people get it?
Well, you can
YouTube.
If you want to watch it right now, you can sign up to our Patreon page.
Do it, dude. Sell yourself. It's fucking awesome. It's incredible. I've seen parts of it. Your Patreon. What is it? Give us the name of the Patreon.
It's www.patreon.com/thebreakdownab. And if you go on there, we post everything, all of our anything that's not a live broadcast. So we do interviews. We've got another one coming up next week with somebody who's talking about royalty review here in Alberta. Those all get posted usually 3 or 4 days before it goes public. So you get that benefit, but you also just get the two selling points that I've been telling people about the Patreon are it just feels really good. It feels it just intrinsically feels good to help us make the jokes and the content that we do, but also if you say to some of these, like the Danielle Smiths and the Dimitrios Nicolaides, if you get to say to them, "Hey, you know what? I'm giving the Breakdown money." Makes them nuts.
Does it make them crazy when they see this?
It absolutely does.
Hey, everybody, I want you to listen to me very carefully. Give the breakdown money. Give him money. This man right here, for free, is educating you. And if you want to do two things, A, hear the truth about what's really happening in Alberta and what's going on with alt-right news and disinformation, that's your guy, Nate Pike. He's my friend. I want you to give him all your money. I want you to give him money you don't have. I want you to give it on an ongoing basis because we need to prop up real journalism, not parading around as fake journalism in this country. Listen,
we're not journalists.
Changed. I know we're not journalists, but we're actually people that give a shit about you and your state of mind, and that's why we do this. We try to, cut through and explain things to you and put it on a plate so you can go, oh, fuck, now I know what this is. Now I'm never going to read them again. And we're going to do that time and time and time and time and time again until you people get it. So the only way to do that is to support people like my friend Nate. Patreon / the BreakdownAB, correct? Where you can get it. All right. Make sure you do it anywhere you get your fine podcasts and his YouTube channel. 8 p.m. tonight is when it's going to air live. But if you want early access to all this incredible content, his Patreon channel is great. Good to see you, my friend. You look well.
Thank you so much for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. And I really enjoyed today's conversation, for the record. It was fun.
I did too. You know what? I miss Lachlan. He's on I can just say this out loud because he won't care. A sex trip with his wife, who's been married 30 years. And I'm like, what do you practice those? Like, is that one of the things? She goes, yeah, it's a pretty stressful time in my life. I got to tell her that that's what's going on this weekend. I'm like, oh, I guess so. When you've been married like 35 years, you got to like make an appointment for that kind of stuff. But he'll be back next week. And
tell him I say hi.
Tuesday. I will. I miss him too. You know what I missed is him hijacking this to talk about bike lanes and transfer payments. I really did. Anyway, great to see you, Nate. I'll be watching tonight. Thanks so much for spending some time with us today. Talk to you soon. Nate Pike, the BreakdownAB, great podcast. And we're not journalists. He makes a great point. I didn't mean to insult him at the end by calling him a journalist. What the fuck, dude? We were doing so good, then you called me a fucking journalist. Sorry, buddy. I didn't mean to. More people should be like him, though. That's where you figure it out, right? That's what I love about these times. Like, everybody's like jacked up over where we're at in terms of division. But in times like these, certain people decide to reach deep down into their pants and pull it out. Nate's one of the guys. It's incumbent upon all of us to fill those gaps and tell the truth. Make people a little less afraid to stand up for the right thing. Because listen, the wrong thing is not an alternative opinion. It's not alternative fact. You don't get to be wrong and go, that's what I believe, so it's right. No. There's a baseline for wrong. Lying is wrong. True North lies through their dicks. They do. And that sweat hog they got at the head of it, this Andrew Lawton guy, he's like one of the biggest misogynist, Islamophobic pricks I've ever met in my life. Never even met him. And yes, Andrew, you know you are. There's lots of receipts of that out there too. In fact, audio of it when you were at that radio station in London, shitting your pants in the midday slot. I can't do radio. I'm terrible. So someone came up to you and was like, hey, do you want to run this lying news outlet full of fucking creeps and weirdos? He's like, please get me out of here because I'm terrible at this. It's what you are. It's what they all are. Same with Ezra Levant. Failures that were given other opportunities that are duplicitous. Those aren't really opportunities. They're just duplicitous dicks. That's all they are. You know that. And then when some of you guys you're going to hit me up. Like, I know a lot of people who hate me watch this too. It's the best. You're going to go, oh, you think you're better than that, huh? Yeah, I am. Like way better than that. On my worst day, I'm better than that. Because I'm one person, right? Just one guy all the time. And why am I that person? Because I want to be happy. I'll tell you what's going to happen with everybody over at True North and Rebel. They all flame out. They all, drinking problems and fucking criminal history out the arsehole. It's why they hire those people, because they'll do anything for money. Rupa will do anything for money. Anybody who writes for those shitholes will do anything for $500 a month. They'll write anything you want. Questionable animal porn haikus, $500 a month, they'll do it. Want them to race bait, and they'll do it. $500. It doesn't matter. They do whatever you want for $500. They have no soul. They're valueless people. That's what that industry is, kids. Feels good to get that off my chest. Anyway, no extra today because the audio video aren't working. Again, it's probably something I did. However, it's Friday. Have a great day, great weekend. We'll see you Monday. And we're psyched. We got a busy week next week as well. Spenny will be back next week. That'll be fun. We're going to talk Pink Shirt Day next week. Way for you to end bullying. Something I don't mind doing from time to time if the moment's right. I know a lot of people are like, we got to end bullying. We got to end bullying people who don't deserve it. We got to up the bullying people who do deserve it. And I do believe that. That's what makes me so happy. Schadenfreude, world's greatest emotion. Anyway, have a great day. Thanks to our friends at kivlaw.ca for making this possible. Again, if you're in trouble, any kind of legal issue that you've got going, they've got a ton of different practice areas. Doesn't matter what it is, Securities Act stuff, real estate stuff, civil claims, any offense that you have, impaired, assault, doesn't matter, white collar stuff, any civil litigation, or if you're in trouble, this is your go-to. My friend Rob, he's the king. His name's Rob Kivlikin, and you can email him personally, robert@kivlaw.ca. If you're going through something, don't go through it on your own. Protect your freedom, get your life back. You need incredible criminal defense lawyers to defend yourself, no matter what you've been charged with. And these are the people that I would send my friends and family. Kivlaw.ca. Go there today. Robert@kivlaw.ca as well. Cantork.com. These guys make the best torque equipment you've ever seen in your life. Torque wrenches for every bolting solution. And if you're sitting there in the podcast, you're listening to this in the oil sands, and you're like, my God, I don't have a bolting solution, loosening or fastening solution for this. They do that. Doesn't matter how big it is. They make beautiful torque wrenches, very hard-working equipment made in Canada by Canadians for Canadians and for people around the world. They are trusted by industry the world over because nobody makes torque wrenches, hard-working, beautiful torque wrenches like my friends over at Cantork. Colin Livingston. Make sure you get a hold of him today. Go to cantork.com for more information. Railroad, nuclear, mining, heavy equipment, they got it all. They'll make it for you, or they'll find you a solution that they already have in stock, and they'll also repair your stuff too. Don't forget, keep calling to my friends at Cantork, top of the list if you need any help there. Cantork.com. Click through today. And Ed at Ed's Fine Imports is Gitch. We wear them, so should you. Luxury branded underwear, boxer briefs, black, red, purple, orange. Pretty sure he's got yellow in now too, but it's kind of a weird yellow. It's like a canary yellow, if I'm not mistaken. Doesn't matter. What matters is you need to get these on your body, fellas. Ladies, your boy will look good in these too. Your young man, your old man, any man in your life that wants the best pair of underwear made for Canadians by Canadians, Gitch3 is your promo code. Pop it in at checkout at edsfineimports.com. You will get a free pair of underwear sent to you. If it's free, it's for me. Go to edsfineimports.com. Proudly sponsored by Gitch. Luxury branded boxer briefs made in Canada for Canadians. Well, that's it for us. Have a great day. See you Monday.